Real feminism is supposed to be women empowerment. And most men do not like feminism. For what reason? We feel like the movement doesn't like us. That's one. A lot of feminists that I've met have taken pride in how rude they can be to men. If you really look at it, the empowerment of women, especially young women, is done mostly by men. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Good Living Podcast. It's your man, Cook Boy. And today we're talking about feminism. I have decided that I'm going to put in my quota. I'm going to contribute to solving the problem of feminism. The problem of feminism in the sense that feminism is a movement that seeks to solve certain problems in life. And instead of everything being a movement, because I noticed something with people, I digress again. But I noticed something with people that they like movement, they like activism, and it's not necessarily that they do it because they want a problem to be solved. They just like the right and the excuse to complain about a particular problem. And so nobody wants to do thorough research and actually implement something that will give a lasting result so that we'll stop hearing about that problem. For example, feminism. Now, I've seen different patterns of feminism, and I've met somebody recently that has given me an insight as to what real feminism is supposed to be. And I'm going to share that. Real feminism is supposed to be women empowerment and upliftment of the girl child. And that in itself is beautiful and is very, very applaudable. But I also went further to ask and I asked, well, what do you seek to achieve? Because men generally do not like feminism. A man can tell you he's a male feminist, but I mean, you're a man. How much of a feminist can you actually really be? You know? So those who I just think they say it because they're trying to get laid or something. I don't really believe a man that says he's a feminist. It's bullshit to me. And most men do not like feminism. For what reason? We feel like it doesn't like us. The movement doesn't like us. That's one. Because a lot of times it kind of like gives a lot of feminists that I've met have taken pride in how rude they can be to men as part of their feminism. I don't know who's teaching that, but it is going around that that is what feminism is. Just being independent, being very masculine. And you can actually be very feminine and be a feminist, which is what it should be. But enough of the complaining. Let me get to the real point. Now, feminism as men, why we don't like it is because one, it doesn't like us, it doesn't seem to like us. And two, it blames us for the problem. You know, we feel like feminism blames men for the need for there to be a feminist movement in the first place. And men do not quite understand where that thing is coming from. But from my own little understanding, I think I get something. Oh, one more thing also that feminism does that I do not like is that it does not really account. It does not recognize the effort that the men make when it comes to women empowerment. If you really look at it, the empowerment of women, especially young women, is done mostly by men. A lot of I was telling I was telling somebody today that women do not have jobs. Like women have jobs obviously, but like there's a lot of people that can be jobless, right? And in a population where there are male people between the ages of 18 to 25 who are jobless, those men they do something for money, whether it's legal or illegal. If they're jobless, they have to feed somehow. Why the women are falling into that category who are jobless are mostly empowered by men. You can take it in whatever context you want to, but that's all I'm going to say. Moving the conversation to what problems does feminism really want to solve? What problems do they seek to solve? And so the problems that feminism seeks to solve, which I really was going to clap my hands to until I gave it a little deeper thought, and then I realized it's probably not that big of a deal. Sorry, I'm going to come up as an asshole here a little bit, but the first problem is domestic violence, right? Domestic violence victims, women empowerment would help people in those situations in whatever way. I don't know what empowerment that will be given to them to try and help them or save them, but money is a universal savior. So if it is money you give to a woman who is being abused by her husband, she can leave that relationship and not be scared of provision. You know. So there are different things like that. There's also a pay discrepancy or a gender pay difference between men and women in the same workplace doing the same work and stuff like that. And these 2 points are very good points. If there is a movement seeking for equal pay for women and men for doing the exact same work, that is plausible. If there's also a movement seeking to help people victims of domestic violence get freedom and justice, then that's also good. From the angle of pay discrepancy, I gave it some thought. And if you are going to define the problem, pay discrepancy is where there is a man working at, for example, so and so bank, and he's working as the head teller. Then there's another head teller in another branch of the same bank working as head teller, but she's female, and then her salary is much less than the man's own. He could be getting 300K, she's getting 200 or 250. And generally, it is unfair in the eyes of the feminists, and they seek to effect that change. But I'm going to explain why this is not unfair, why it is actually correct for the woman to earn less in the workplace and for the man to earn more. For these reasons, and then you will tell me if it's justifiable when I'm done. One, when decisions are to be made in terms of employment and pay structure, in terms of how it works in all companies, whether it's in the banking industry or otherwise, statistics are taken in by the big corporations to set a status quo that is going to make sure that the economy is running effectively if they use that status quo, if they use that formula to live life or to run themselves. In terms of statistics, which gender between the workforce is between the age of like 25 to 60. So when you're employing people, they are coming to your company at ages 24 to like, let's say, maximum of 40. 24 to 40 years, people are still looking for jobs. We expect that anybody above 40 should be well on their way in their career, shouldn't be really seeking for a new job or anything like that. So in terms of employment, we are having people into your company between the men and women in that age bracket. What gender has more expenses to make? Like, who needs the money more? Now we are thinking about salary structure, but before the value they bring to the workplace. Statistically, men over 25 would either have had families or would have responsibilities. So either their own family that they assembled or taking care of their old parents and stuff. It is always the male child who has the responsibility to provide in various situations in life. That is a known fact. We'll keep that aside. On the other hand, also, it means that the women between the ages of 25 to 40 are either in their husband's house already, where ideally, statistically, most households, the man is the provider. So they're either in those households or they are single women. And in terms of how the world works, single women are not expected to provide for their family, even if it's their parents and stuff. The pressure on them is not as much as it is on the man in that age bracket, which is why even if you do the same work, you get paid a little less. The second reason that might happen in the workplace is the off chance. You know, there's this thing, there's this theory, there's this principle I have that if you are breaking into a workspace or an industry that is dominated or naturally occupied by one gender, and you are somebody of the opposite gender, you are going to be paid less automatically. It's not about the office work or the workplace. If you're looking at the problem, if you're looking at the problem from the bigger picture perspective, take for example the women in fashion, right? The women in fashion would earn more than the men in fashion. The female models earn more than the male models. And it's not because the male model is not posing the way the female model is posing, or the way he poses, his back doesn't pain him the way the female model's back pains her. But it is an industry of beauty, of why am I looking for another word when beauty is enough? It's an industry of beauty. And the industry of beauty is a woman's world. And when a man is trying to break into that industry, he's going to have to endure the consequences of breaking out of traditional norms, which is one, you get paid less because generally the people who are looking for that market are not expecting to see your gender there. So you are an anomaly as much as you are breaking grounds or making record as being the first man or woman to be in any industry. And you have to understand that you're going to get paid less. So the male models understand that. The problem is when it comes to women, they think it's unfair if it's not going their way. So We have to explain to them gently that this is the consequence for coming to work when there's like, other things that you can do. Let me explain this. When I talked about the status quo and then using statistics to make decisions as to how people are going to be paid and employed, there is something else that we should put in mind, that we should have in mind. When decisions like that are made, there is always a small set of people that will be disgruntled because we are when you take statistics and use statistics to make a decision, there's always exceptions. Not every man is having several bills to provide for his family and do all that stuff. And not every woman doesn't have bills. So the woman who actually has bills like a man and is paid less is going to be unhappy with that outcome. But the truth is, she's never going to get the exact same amount of money because if you try to please her, you're going to be fucking up an entire system that has been put in place for the majority of society to thrive. And so she's unfortunately going to be disgruntled in that area of life or in that place if she doesn't, one, understand that that is how things work, or two, go to an industry where she will be more appreciated, you know. So a male tailor that makes female clothes is also not going to be paid like the female tailor that makes female clothes. It's that kind of thing. You will say, okay, should women not go to the office? Should women not work? Yeah, these are modern times. Everybody works. But if we go back and trace it down to how gender roles should work before different things that happened throughout history began to change the narrative of things. In the early days, it was the men who would go hunting, and in the more Western world, the men who would go to and work in the factory and bring money home. The woman is the homemaker. They can sit at home and do the sewing. There are a lot of these um, industries that are female dominated really started as stuff that women used to do to pass time. Catering is cooking that they do for their family. Sewing is stuff that they used to pass time. Knitting, those kind of things. So these were the things that women used to do, and then men used to go to actually do the work that brings in money or salary or stuff like that. And it is over time, as economies have become bad, people have become poorer, and then there's been a need, and there's been this promotion of double income household. Like it's better than having a man make a lot of the money. And there's the also the fear of men being terrible people. So if they are 100% providers, they might they might take advantage of that to suppress the woman. And that is also a possibility. But at the same time, in one of the other episodes that said picking a good partner is one of the fundamental things you have to look at in life that will take you where you want to go or stop you from going where you want to go. So generally, you should pick a good partner and stop generalizing and saying, "Oh, if a man has authority to provide everything for me, then he's going to fuck my life up." Not everybody is like that. Check your experiences and then know what you have to do to pick a good partner. So if you still don't understand or believe or or if not justified why they are paid differently, I don't know if there's any other point I can give as to that effect. But the issues of feminism is very touchy because the problems that they outline is always is kind of confused with injustice. And with the way I've explained this now, at face value, it might look like an injustice. But with the explanation, it is for the majority of society to thrive that these people are not happy, that these people are short-handed. And there is no industry, there is no place in life where everybody is carried along, especially when the sample size is large, especially when the number is large. I mean, I can carry everybody in my household along if in a way. But when it now comes to everybody that has my skin color, it's now difficult. You have to now make more strategic decisions. Some people now have to be left behind. It's just what happens. Few are often sacrificed for the many. And the few who are sacrificed in the case of work discrepancy between women and men in the workplace are the ones who chose to work other than maybe um being in female dominated industries or picking to choosing to marry men who are wealthy and can retire them immediately after their marriage. Stuff like that. These are options that women have that they can take alternatively to working. Not everybody has those options, but that is what would have led to a more fair earning outcome for you as a woman. So unfortunately, if you have to work, this is the way life is. And then you can find your way around it by being smart and now using your head to think instead of fighting against it, and it's never going to change. So that's that with pay discrepancy and why I think it's not that big of an issue, or it's not an issue that feminism should be bugging themselves about. The next one is domestic violence. I'm not saying domestic violence is not an issue. Domestic violence is a problem, and who better to look for solutions and solve that problem and support its victims than the feminist movement? However, I think it has a solution that everybody is choosing to ignore, because I cannot be the first person who has thought about this as a solution. Domestic violence happens when a man is used to physically abusing his wife, you know. So husband slapping, you know what's domestic violence? If people have died in households or in marriages because of domestic violence, people's husbands have killed them with beating, literally. So it's a big problem. Now the solution that I'm saying the feminist movement is choosing to ignore because it just wants to continue talking about it for years and years is this. How does domestic violence start? It is women who meet men who have the tendency to beat their partners and who still marry them, and in a lot of cases have children for them, which makes it more complicated for them to leave those situations. Now, the problem, the solution I'm suggesting that I said I'm not the first person to think about is this one: is giving up on those people who have made the mistake of choosing men who are going to beat them. Hear me out. This might be very harsh to say, but if you want your daughters, your grandchildren not to ever know what domestic violence is, a sacrifice has to be made. I believe for every real solution that anybody wants to prefer to any problem, sacrifice has to be made by one person or a group of people. And the sacrifice here is, instead of the feminist movement focusing all their attention on helping the victims, like women who have been slapped and beaten, and using money to try and set them up in business so they can earn their own money and stuff, all of that stuff. Instead of doing that, why don't we focus on grooming properly the new generation of girls? So girls, as soon as they begin to have any form of sense whatsoever, I cannot think of an age right now you can start having those discussions. But if you can focus on teaching the girl child how to choose men with preferences that are, instead of money now and stuff, the one that will not beat you first of all, because we know it's a big issue. It's something that can take life, and anything that can take life is a very, very big issue. So leave the women who are already suffering domestic violence, and then focus on teaching the younger ones that if a man touches you, or a man that can slap a woman, don't ever give that man face again. The reason why domestic violence still exists is because men who have the tendency to beat women still get women, and so it continues. A boy that is growing up in his household sees his father beat his mother all through without any consequence. Sees this one is beating his girlfriend, and eventually, take it that there's a member of my family now, and I'm a young boy. I'm like 14, and I see this my cousin always beating his girlfriend. 2 years later, I'm 16 years, and I'm at their wedding. They got married. It shows that you can be beating your girlfriend and everything will still be good. But if the the way you're teaching those girls now, that those little girls, that hitting of women is, any man that hits a woman is a beast and you shouldn't go near him, they will not pay attention to men who beat women, at least from that their age upwards, if you do the outreach properly. So it is the men who touch women now, or those little boys who are learning from their parents that you can slap women. When they slap a woman, and every other girl who have learned this trick stops talking to them, stops giving them face, no matter how they find, no matter what they have. Since those girls have been taught from a young age that no matter what a man has, once he's able to lay his hands on you, you should run away. If men are not seeing women and they're not getting laid because they slap women, the men who slap women are going to reduce drastically. The men who slap women are going to be really antagonized by society, because they're the one allowing us. If once they just call somebody a woman beater, a man, he would regret. He would. How do I say it? He would want to wash himself off that name because it's extremely bad. You get? So if we really focus 100% of our energy on teaching the younger generation of girls how to pick men who don't beat, only the men who know how to take care of women will be getting the women, and then the other women beaters will be left behind. The collateral damage, however, is the women who are already suffering domestic violence to have to deal with themselves. But it's just one generation of them. It is just one generation of them. Some might die in their husbands' houses if there is no help. And every life you might say is precious, but look at the lives you are going to save with this process, not the ones that are who already made the mistake of choosing wrong partners, unfortunately. And think of how, with that new generation now, the few women who will suffer this thing until for the rest of their life, apparently or probably, would be the ones who have made the sacrifice for these young girls to never have to experience that. And every generation after that, you set that foundation, you sacrifice the other ones, and yeah, that's that's the theory. I think that's the solution that is going to work. I'm actually convinced. I'm very sure this solution is going to work. The thing is, who has the mind to do it? Because halfway through this video, whoever is a feminist would have been triggered to the point where they won't even finish it or see the sense in this. But sometimes I believe that my message is indigestible, but it still has sense in it. If you can deny the sense in it, how do I say it? If you cannot digest it, at least don't deny the sense in it. Thank you very much. Remember, this video is sponsored by Aura Nigeria. Um, we have other content for you, videos that we put out every single week. Do not miss out. You can listen to Good Living Podcast on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube Music, and I'll see you same time next week. Ciao.